Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Dedication. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the MLK Memorial Dedication, Dr. Lewis Baldwin. And I'm sure that Dr. Lewis Baldwin does not need any introduction to this audience, primarily because he's been with us on many, many occasions, and we do consider him to be our Dr. MLK Civil Rights resident scholar. And of course, Dr. Baldwin, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you so much.
And again, state how delighted we are to have you here with us. And as I've said before, that you've given us status dealing with Dr. Martin Luther King. You see,
Thank you.
As a matter of fact, I think our audience might know, as you've indicated when you talk about, and as you will talk about some background information,
That's
that in a real sense, you became so caught up with Dr. Martin Luther King that you literally almost followed his entire scholarly path.
That's right.
And so you sort of thought yourself a Dr. Martin Luther King scholar a long time ago.
That's right.
And I appreciate that. Let's start off, Dr. Baldwin, by talking about your background and information and that kind of information. Then we'll get into the MLK Memorial Dedication and some of the things that you believe to be important that our audience ought to know over the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, very good. I grew up in a little town called Camden, Alabama, which is Wilcox County, Alabama, a part of the Alabama Black Belt. And Martin Luther King Jr., as you well know, led a number of demonstrations in that area. In the southwest part of Alabama, Selma. We know about the Selma movement of 1965. I remember that movement because I grew up 35 miles south of Selma. So I grew up in Camden, Alabama in the 1940s and 50s as a student in high school and college. I did participate in some of the demonstrations, and I matriculated at Talladega College from 1967 to 1971. And after graduating from Talladega, I pursued seminary education at Crozer Theological Seminary in Rochester, New York. And I received a PhD from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois in 1980. But my background is very much associated with some of the events that occurred in connection with the Civil Rights Movement.
You know, when we talk about the memorial dedication, I think that I'm reminded of something that you might have said about 5 or 6 years ago, that Dr. Martin Luther King is no longer the old country preacher that we believed him to be for a long time. I think you were among the first to start seeing Dr. King outside of that mode. Let's talk about the image, the change that has come about in reference to Dr.
As you well know, there's long been that tendency to call King an American Gandhi. And many view him as a Southern black preacher, but I like to view him as a global figure. In his book, Trumpet of Conscience, The Trumpet of Conscience, I think somewhere around pages 30 31, Dr. King refers to himself as a citizen of the world. He said, I speak as a citizen of the world. So we can't simply identify him with this quest for a new South or this quest for the American dream. We have to identify him with this quest for a global beloved community, of what he called the world house. Dr. King said in his final 3 years, that because of scientific and technological revolutions, we have been brought together as a people around the world.
Whether we like it or not.
Whether we like it or not.
Those situations.
That's right. Whether we like it or not, we are part of a world house or a worldwide neighborhood, and we have to learn to live together, Muslim, Christian, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist, people who have different political affiliations, religious affiliations, different cultures, because we can no longer live apart. We are part of a worldwide neighborhood. So I think that captures the image of Dr. King. He often saw himself and often said that I'm a global figure, not a Southern black preacher or one who symbolizes this struggle for the American dream. I like to be considered a global citizen of the world.
Citizen of the world.
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah.
And of course, Dr. Baldwin, we're getting ready for our first commercial break, after which we'll come back and we'll deal more specifically with that, and especially with the dedication, memorial dedication.
Sounds
we've got
great.
about 35 seconds. What do you think about that over in a 25-second statement? What do you think about the memorial dedication?
I think it speaks to the fact that Dr. King symbolized the best in the American tradition of protest and dissent. As you well know, the Constitution gives us the right to protest for right. And I think Dr. King symbolized that better than anyone in our history. He was a person who believed that as Americans we have a right to protest for against any injustice in our society.
And of course, Dr. Baldwin, let's take this first commercial break and then we'll pick up at that point.
Okay.
And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.